We are in a mental health crisis of epidemic proportions. Rates of addiction, mass violence, and suicide are rampant. This data is evidence of the failures of both society and mental health treatment. Today, we're talking to Dr. Sudhir Gadde, and I just couldn't be more thankful for his saying yes to coming to talk to us. Heartlifters, I am so committed this year to bringing intelligent, remarkable conversations to the table that help us grow our emotional and mental intelligence, which will lead to our spiritual health and maturity. Dr. Sudhir Gadde, MD, is a board-certified psychiatrist with a private practice in Union Square, New York City. He's also a commander in the U.S. Navy Reserve and the medical director for the Center for Recovery and Wellness. Dr. Gadde offers progressive psychiatric care that combines medication and therapy to help patients identify the core issues contributing to their mental health conditions. After completing his undergraduate degree at New York University in New York City, he earned his medical degree at St. George's University Medical School. He went on to his residency at the State University of New York at Stony Brook, where he received the Stephen Samick Award for Compassionate Care. Following residency, he worked as an attending at Bellevue Hospital Center and taught pharmacology at the New York University School of Medicine, both in New York City. He's a member of the American Psychiatric Association and is also a psychiatrist at the New Life School for Special Needs Children in the Bronx. I was most interested in having Dr. Gadde come talk to us today about the heart of a psychiatrist, because a great deal of my work as a board-certified life coach is to triage people and to help them access the proper mental and medical care necessary for their healing. I like to say that I come alongside them and put tennis shoes on and help them find all of the places and spaces where they can receive authentic, real help in their lives. And psychiatry is definitely one major aspect of that. And it's one that frustrates me personally in a great way, because it's very hard to find a psychiatrist who not only will give you pills, but who will give you skills. And that is what Dr. Gadde is all about. And I was also curious because I've always been curious in alternative medicine and on alternative ways and holistic ways of becoming our healthiest self. And he is doing immense research on the possibilities of low lithium in use for our mental and emotional well-being. So this is going to be a very enriching conversation. It's a little different than the ones we normally have here, but it's vitally necessary. So I invite you to create some space and have a very open mind when you listen to our conversation. And we both are inviting you to ask questions. Questions are how we learn. I want us to enlarge our sphere of understanding in how to help not only ourselves, but those in our spheres of influence and those beyond.
Sometimes the story we tell ourselves is not really true. Sometimes the story others tell about us is not really true. Here on today's Heartlift with Janell, we are going to learn how to rewrite our story. So pick up your favorite pen and journal, grab a cup of something delicious, and start your heart-lifting journey towards living a meaningful life.
Hello and welcome to today's Heartlift with Janell. We are starting 2023 off with a bang and a big dose of expertise and intelligence, because we have with us today Dr. Sudhir Gadde. So thrilled that you're here with us today. This is a huge welcome. When I read all of your brilliance on your site, which of course I will give to everyone, I had a million questions. And primarily one that I wanted to bring to the table, because Dr. Gadde, finding a really solid psychiatrist is not easy. And that's what you are. So I first wanted to ask, how did you come into this world of psychiatry? Why did you choose psychiatry?
I just wanted to be a doctor at first. And I knew that from a very young age when I saw my pediatrician and really was enamored by her in a reverence kind of way. She was an
Right.
elderly German woman who was very competent and firm and fair. And, she wouldn't hold me down for the immunizations. She had others do that for her, but I respected that. And,
Yeah.
and I also certainly was just intoxicated maybe by the immediate credibility that she had with her white coat and
Oh,
her
yeah.
authority, that she could even override my parents, right? Then I read some Peanuts books about the body and I was hooked. I was like, this is an unending mystery, what's inside and what we are in
Mm-hmm.
relation to what is outside of us. I want to know everything about this.
Mm.
So, I went to medical school, and then I was on in New York City on September 11th, 2001,
Oh.
on my first day of rotations, and that was, of course, start to finish, a day that when we look back, those of us who are there don't forget. And
Right.
on that day, I realized that I was doing more counseling and sort of
Mhm.
soft science and care than I was anything else.
Yeah.
And
Makes
uh,
sense.
it was formative. It further reinforced that I was most interested in a place where more was to be learned.
Mm-hmm. Way beyond the scope of the external or the body.
Yeah,
Right. And the
yeah,
integration of all the body and the mind. And that's what draws me to you as well. That's what makes you special, I would say. In your approach to psychiatry is different. Share with my audience. I've read about it, of course. Your approach is unique, I feel like, in that it is an integration of either say body, mind, or spirit, body, mind, but it's an integration. And I feel like that's what so many of my clients need, a psychiatrist, but it is so difficult. It seems, maybe I'm not plugged into the right stream, to find someone like yourself who has a more holistic approach, as well as you actually interact with your patients, it sounds like, and you get very involved. It's not just, I'm here for 15 minutes, here's my med, bye-bye, see you again at the next med check. Fair statement?
yeah. No, there's a lot in there to unpack. I think in
Mm-hmm.
general, I don't want to lionize, deify myself or anything. It's the method. Right.
Yes.
The method is open source, and I
Mm-hmm.
want to teach it. And it's a privilege to come on here and talk to someone who does a great deal of healing on the preventative side, on the faith side,
Yeah.
and assist and bridge, because
Yes.
I always thought there was such a gap
There is a
between
gap. Mm-hmm.
uh, you know me as a secular priest and actual priests, that
Yes.
between God and earth, whereas sometimes I think they're both one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to try and understand better results. I was very frustrated with the results I was getting using the typical combinations of medications.
Yeah, that's
Instead,
what
I
you
was
write.
seeing,
Yep.
yeah, I was seeing people just get bags of medicine,
Mm-hmm.
interactions, what we call polypharmacy,
Mm-hmm.
and still have results that were milk toast, a term that is really just about around World War II. It was feeble. It was weak,
Yes.
the results.
Yes.
And so I said, there's got to be something different. I also didn't want to continue to give intoxicating or addictive medicine, harmful medicine. For
Thank
example,
you.
benzodiazepines,
Thank you.
the alcohol in a pill form,
Mm-hmm.
the opiate of psychiatry, right? And opiates have their place, of course, for
Of
pain
course.
temporarily. They're God given, they're in the ground, right?
Mm-hmm.
From poppy seeds and such. But we can go too far. We've seen that. And I think we're going too far with the benzos as well, where we're
Mm-hmm.
giving people an immediate bomb for their anxiety or their panic or insomnia. But it comes at a cost, and it
Yeah.
accrues in terms of dementia risk
Yeah.
and depression amplification and the difficulty in getting through anxiety. So,
Yes.
I was frustrated about giving those medicines as a blank check weekly or trying to take them away, monthly, and trying to then take them away was
Oh,
the bane of my existence, to try and talk patients out of not using something that they had become primitively connected to.
without a doubt. Yes. Even if it's a placebo, which we know it's not, it was still a dependency.
Absolutely. And so interactions as well with alcohol or with opiates, so they became dangerous. So I said, I think psychiatry is failing, but just based on statistics, it is. But I think it's also hard for psychiatry to succeed today when it's more and more difficult for people to economically succeed.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
this is the other part that I talk about a lot, which is, it's a Sisyphean battle. I want to put a little wind at the back of someone, but we're facing strong headwinds of a system that is against labor, a system that is very pro, 1% in terms of tax system, in terms of who we can trust in government, because they're really just financing their next campaign.
That's so true.
Look at your email box.
Yes.
So until we have transparency there and trust there, just like I had when I was a doctor, I have never taken pharma money. I never will. But
wow.
when I was getting free lunches,
yes,
at residency, I liked it, and then I realized, okay, that's actually soiling my white coat. These tchotchkes on me. So it was great when the residency board said, we're not going to have free lunches. You're going to have cold cuts every day. All right, that sucks. But I was happier with a Bic pen than I was with fancier pens.
Wow. I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing.
And it's the same. It's the same. Yeah. I think they can take their honor back too in Congress and say, we're going to have public financed elections. Yes. We're going to change the tax system so that purchasing power is different, so that we're not all working 3 jobs a day trying to pay for basic needs. Anyway, that's the macro side.
But that is a huge headwind that you just talked about. It's a huge headwind. So thank you for acknowledging it. At least we can't go deep or wide here, but we can at least acknowledge that exists, and that you can acknowledge that it was a tempting part of wearing a white coat, I would think. I love that you initially said that when your German pediatrician walked into the room, there was an immediate sense of, oh, this is important. This woman is walking. Yeah, I get that. Like, I definitely get that. But that there can be an abuse of that as well. And you acknowledge that. And I appreciate it.
Thank you for connecting it back. You're clearly your therapy ears are on.
They are.
And that part of your brain is probably never off. I haven't talked to someone this acute in a while, because I'm realizing things that were unconscious in me. Right here, we have a German immigrant, heavily accented, probably educated, when, and wearing a white coat, female, right? So
female too.
Doctor,
I know,
right?
exactly.
So every
you
single
said she,
thing.
I was like, oh.
Yeah, my parents, immigrants, also with names. Pepazin was her name, Dr. Pepazin. May she rest in peace. Impossible to pronounce or spell, and so everything against her in terms of, and yet everything that is what America is great about.
Yes,
that she could come here and succeed and help others. That was very powerful to me. And I think what she was wearing is sacred. And I don't think we should ruin what is sacred.
Oh, I got chills right when you said it. I mean, tearing up. I really am, because I think it is sacred. And I think the where you sit is sacred also, to be able to hold stories. My father came home from Vietnam. We know now that he had PTSD, but they certainly didn't know. He would dive off his hospital bed thinking he was in a foxhole. Yeah. And I was, 10 to 11 and 12 witnessing that, going, what the heck? Alcoholic, just what the heck? Who is this man that came home from that? Yes. So,
and, as a veteran myself, I obviously have great admiration, and I thank you for acknowledging that this is sacred. I look at it as that, right? I look at that, my duty is to the person, but I always have the concept in psychiatry, we call it ego observance, right? It's the camera in
Yes.
the sky, right? It's
Yes.
the eye in the sky, as per that famous band. Forgive me, I forget the classic rock band.
Oh, good. I'm not the only one forgetting here today.
Alan Parsons Project.
Yes.
But I think about who's watching me when I'm doing anything with a patient, and are my mentors, ancestors, going to be, appropriately approving of this?
Proud of
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
absolutely, definitely. I love your consciousness of that, though. That is what I'm saying. To me, is rare, and I'm really grateful that you are here. So one of the other things that really brought me, well, there were many, but I recently lost a client to suicide. It was my first. I'm not a psychiatrist, neither am I, a clinical psychologist, which might happen before I pass on in this world. But it rocked my world. It really did. And he was in the service, 19-year-old young man. I read your accounts of 3 patients, I think it was, that you said. And that was another marker. Your German pediatrician was a marker. I like to call those spiritual markers. Those are things in our life that show up that are just hint, right? They hint to where we're going to be guided to go and be. And so this was a marker for me, a transitional piece that I'm sitting with. And so I think that's what led you on the journey you're on now. But if you wouldn't mind sharing, how did that affect you, and perhaps your insights on that, even on suicide, like perhaps how we can be more alert about it, aware about it, and as helping professionals hone in a bit more?
I'll tell you that the first time it happened, I was working at Bellevue, and I was seeing patients privately. And this was a private patient that had been referred to me, and he had a severe cocaine addiction, and he also had sexual trauma. So he was medicating the pain of the trauma, right? And I always talk about addiction as almost always a response,
It is,
rather than something innate. So you're either medicating pain or emotional pain, or even inattention and frustration about difficulties in achievement. So
could I add though, it also can be like an attachment issue. Like if you haven't come into the world with secure attachment, at least this is my premise, you're just always going to be hunting and searching to be filled, to be seen, to be heard, to be loved, to belong to. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that attachment, falls into the big umbrella of emotional pain, right? Is to not have those connections and predictability at home. And I have some patients who I say, well, is there trauma? And I go through a few different examples, and they say no. And then they later tell me that they've never known their dad. I said, well, that is the absence is in a sense a neglect of trauma, right?
Without, absolute living without a strong, stable,
and to make it short, that night I went to bed, and I had one of the worst and most memorable dreams I have ever had. And this nightmare of someone slipping off a ledge, and I couldn't hold on to them. And the next morning, when I walked into my office at Bellevue, it's a Monday. It's going to be a tough week. It's a war zone of sorts, and you leave as victorious as possible, but bloody and bruised on Friday. And as I sit down, I get a phone call that night that he had hung himself. And I was broken for a long time about that. But, I also knew that, I blamed myself. I was angry at him. And yet I knew that I had given him some chances, but perhaps not enough. I had not prescribed what I think I would have prescribed now, which is low dose lithium.
Which is where we were going. Yeah, we want to talk about that.
I had given him some medicines that were standard antidepressants, but he needed more protection. And I knew then that he had my number, certainly, and I had reached out to him, but maybe I could have reached out more. And despite that, I tried, and I had prescribed, and he was in touch with 2 people. He went off the grid. He went into the woods somewhere, and this is what happened. And so it made me realize that how powerful sexual trauma is specifically.
It's
Such a betrayal
devastating.
and
Mm-hmm.
such a high risk.
Mm-hmm.
How powerful addiction plus that can
I'm
be.
glad you're saying and bringing that to the table because I have quite a few clients that have that
So those are the
history.
markers, right? When you mentioned,
Those are the
how do we
markers.
know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know by looking at someone, but I know if they
Oh,
tell me they've had this, that you are in the red zone
yes,
until you start taking some of the treatment that will bring you down into the yellow zone. And I don't know if you're ever going to get to the green zone.
without a doubt. Thank you for saying this. This is so affirming on a professional level, but also on just so many levels.
So
Yes,
that means that we have to do more on the prevention side.
we
That,
do.
the people who have become or have been sexually betrayed and harmed as children, right? Such a
Mhm.
terrible thing. I'm a father of two. To even think about,
No.
my kids, going through something like that it enrages me. It
Oh, without a
to
doubt.
a very dark place.
Yes.
But what I know is that if you've had this happen to you, there's a chance that you may betray someone else.
Hmm.
And it's important that you get that treatment or that we offer that treatment
Yep.
openly to people who have had this so that we can improve how you turn that energy constructively instead
Mhm.
of destructively.
Yes, I'm trying not to scream and shout because, as you and I were talking beforehand, I come from a faith-based tradition, right? And what enrages me, these people are churched people. They are people who say they follow the ways and teachings of Jesus. They would qualify themselves as quote unquote a Christian who have heard probably a million sermons, been in 1,000 Bible studies. Of course, I'm being a hyperbole here. Maybe some of the women are my age, and I'm like, I would have never known that. I know myself how high functioning I am and how good I am at living behind my smile. We're all, and especially now in the social media age, we are all living behind quite a few facades. So I'm just grateful that you are coming and speaking to it. And I want my community to please hear Dr. Gadd. And if you in your life have experienced, or maybe you're tripping over subconscious things that you can't understand, get the help you need today. Reach out and ask, especially if you've experienced sexual trauma.
So, to talk about what that help is and how to really do
Yeah.
that, I
Yeah.
frequently analogize to the physical. And that would be that if you traumatized an arm or, gosh, even worse, a car accident or something, first you'd get setting of broken bones. You'd
You
get
would.
cooling. You'd use ice on swollen areas, right?
You would.
Compression, ice, rest it. Then
Ice.
you
Mm-hmm.
would rehabilitate it. And we first want to not inflame it with things like alcohol or even, believe it or not, too much cannabis, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to feel safe. We want to not inflame it,
Mm-hmm.
your memories, that is, with these intoxicants. And then we want to find closure by reclaiming.
Yes. I love
So,
you say that. I love when you talk about reclaiming.
rehabilitating physically is akin to
Mhm.
reclaiming mentally.
Yes.
And I think that requires, an equation is blame plus forgiveness, right?
Mhm.
That you can say what you have to say as to who hurt you and why, and be honest about that.
Mhm.
But find a way to forgive them because it's likely that they displaced it upon you unknowingly without their own treatment. Because if,
All right. Yeah.
as you mentioned, if Jesus
Mhm.
can forgive the very people who
Mm.
crucify him and
Mhm.
castigate him and demean and destroy him
Humiliate.
slowly and
Mhm.
eventually completely,
Mhm.
then that is how we honor him, is by being able to forgive the people that hurt us. But
I
we can still be
know.
honest about the fact that they hurt us.
We have to be honest. That's the thing. Like, we know it's proven if you do not bring that into the present and make meaning of it. We have to make meaning of it. Something that I've sat with these women and these men, and it's like, I can't make meaning of this with you, but we're going to try. so that we can then, right, as we would say, consolidate it in our memory, get it out of that amygdala, get it out of that fight, flight, freeze, so that it can rest in the hippocampus, and it can just be our story.
And look, I think it's been easier for me to talk with guys about this by keeping it more logical than emotional, by making it more physical than mental. You mentioned the amygdala, right? And that is more or less that fear zone, dead center in the brain. And when it's activated, it stays hot.
Hot as fire.
Right. And every experience you have after touches that, it's more oil on that fire, and it gets hotter and hotter. And it thinks that it has to stay hot to survive because it is in a war zone.
Yes.
But it's taking away from the rest of the brain, because the brain is an electrical organ. There's only so much electricity that can course left to right, up, down, inside out, and then downwards. If it's clustered, it's like a traffic jam of electricity.
I love when, yes.
Right? So, a roadway or a network of highways, what's the point if everyone is log jammed into one zone? It's better when it's free flowing, right? This is a functional city. Your brain is not functioning well when it's too hot in the middle.
Yep. That's it.
And that's where I started to talk about, what is physics? What is physical? What can we use that maybe is different? And I realized
different approach. Yeah.
The people who were being treated with lithium for bipolar disorder were doing better than people who were not being treated with lithium for bipolar disorder. It was the best treatment for them. It is the best treatment for imminent suicidal risk. So I thought to myself, why can't we use a little less for someone who doesn't have that diagnosis? They haven't had a manic episode, but they're committing suicide in a slow motion manner.
Yes.
They are drinking themselves slowly to death. They are cutting themselves even. They're punishing themselves.
Yes.
They're putting themselves in tough situations that they can't get out of. Or they have suicidal thoughts, but don't have bipolar. Why can't we use less than the standard? Because I also don't want to give them the side effects of the standard amounts. And maybe I don't want to do lab work every month because that's going to be a barrier to treatment.
Yes.
So I started to use less, and I realized it was working clinically right in front of me. And then I also realized it was already talked about, but it was not taught to us because lithium costs nothing. It's pennies. And so you don't hear commercials about iodine or fluoride, right?
Just have it highlighted, underlined in my research and study for this time. It's like, where did that come to you? Like, I'm so curious. Just what was this? It makes me think of George Washington Carver back in the day when they couldn't get crops to grow, and he locked himself away in a workshop for 7 days. 7 days. He locked himself away to get this, to find out, why is this not working? And all of a sudden, call it God, call it whoever you want. It was like, look at the peanut. Just look at the peanut. I love that story. I love it. So I feel like, where were you when you had a look at lithium moment, low dose lithium? Where were you when you had that moment?
I was probably, in the equivalent of locked away, which is in a windowless office in Bellevue, looking at charts and looking at options. And, I was there overnights at times and, late as well. A lot of good things happen in sheds, right?
They do.
So
They do.
in terms of deep thinking. So,
yes,
but this is also nothing that I have discovered. It's a rediscovery.
It is.
And
I was looking at the timeline.
It is then putting all of my credibility onto this and saying, guys, we need to look at this further, and we need to see how low can we go safely, and where is the continuum? Where's the spectrum of how much lithium we need at times and don't need at all? Frankly, we need it. Everyone has it already in them. It's in the earth. It's in rocks. It started the Big Bang. You talk about starting the year with a bang. It started that because there was hydrogen, helium, and lithium. That is the dust that ignited. It's the dynamite that ignited the entire universe.
So just calm down, all of my faith-based people who do believe in the creation story. We can entertain this. We can entertain this. We
Absolutely
are expanding our
synergized.
thoughts. I love that those three elements were initially there. That's phenomenal. Wow.
And then you bring it to where it is in the earth and wherever it is in water.
Yeah.
in terms of spring water, in terms
Right.
of deep springs, in terms of places that are stripped now. It used to be
Hmm.
in Saratoga Springs. It's still in Athens, Georgia, Lithia
Really?
Springs, which is a Native American sacred site. And
Oh.
they sell lithiated water from there.
Want to
It
go? Want
is,
to get some?
you can get some. And I'll tell you that I bottled some in West Texas and call it third element water. It is
It's
remarkably
making me
healthy.
think when I went
Where,
to
yeah.
Prague, okay, my daughter and I went to Prague, and then we went up to Ersky Broad, where my maternal side is from. I'd have to look up in our charts and pictures, but there was this place that we went to that was amazing, but you could drink this water, and I felt incredible.
Mhm.
I'm wondering, I'm going to have to research if it was Lithia.
There are springs in Germany near Baden-Baden. There are springs in Denmark, in Greece, of course, where Galen, the
Mhm.
founder of medicine, would take his patients to.
Yes.
All of those are
Gosh.
lithiated springs. Okay. And when you look at the latest research replicated globally, those regions also have lower rates of suicide,
Yeah.
homicide, crime, Alzheimer's,
Yeah.
psychosis.
This is
So it is
crazy.
brain
Mhm.
protective.
Brain
How
protected.
is
I like that. Hmm.
how people ask how does it work, right?
Yes. Tell us,
And so
please.
I can tell you the physics concept of moving
Yep.
electricity. That
We're
that
doing the
is
short
that
circuit here
a
because,
scientist would say that's poetry, that's not prose. But the enzyme is called GSK3,
right.
okay, glycogen synthase kinase 3. Now you can look that up, and the importance of that is that we have more of that as we age. We need it early. It prunes neurons. It's our gardener. Okay, it's our
Oh,
neuron gardener,
okay.
and you need it when you're young because your neurons are overgrown. They're like weeds, and you got
Hmm.
to clip them. And you have too many connections, and you get, God forbid, schizophrenia. So
Oh.
you need that enzyme to create a beautiful hedgework and
Hmm.
pattern. Okay, but as you age and you have less REM sleep as well, the neuronal growth is less, but the gardener is still going at it.
Yes.
So you want your gardener to go home in the wintertime. He's still clipping away. The lithium
Helps
usage
it.
reduces the gardener's activity.
Oh, well, that
So
is an
we end up
aha.
retaining brain tissue as we age. That happens at the microdose level. So let's look at amounts. Okay, just to give you an idea of how much someone with bipolar disorder would
Hmm.
take about 600 to 1200 milligrams of lithium carbonate per day, which is about 200 milligrams of elemental lithium.
Oh,
What I recommend frequently to my patients, and I've studied this, and I'll tell you about the two
yeah. I'm going to
studies,
put all the links to your studies in our show notes so
is
everybody can look.
is 150 milligrams of lithium carbonate from the pharmacy. So not 600 to 1200, but about a tenth of that.
Wow.
Okay, 10% of that is about 20 milligrams of lithium elemental. And finally, if you wanted to go online and buy it over the counter, you can do that. That's why I say you don't need to go to the greatest psychiatrist, but the
Hmm.
psychiatrist will get greater if they recognize the power of this,
Hmm.
because it's like trying to be a dentist without fluoride. It's much harder. But
Right.
that product that you can get online might not be pure. That's my problem with it, is that you never know
Yes.
what you're getting
That
sometimes.
makes
But
me
there are good
concerned.
companies out there, very
Hmm.
good companies that are vetted, that are successful, great
Hmm.
reviews. And those amounts are about 1 milligram of lithium elemental,
Wow.
innocuous, okay,
Right.
at
Sure.
1 milligram a day, at one pill a day.
Hmm.
And what I founded was the lithium water from Texas. You can look it up, thirdelementwater.com. And now we have a powdered hypervitamin that you can put into any glass of water. And it creates, 8 essential vitamins and minerals as per the CDC, and a tiny bit of lithium that I know where it's from. It's from Minnesota. These guys are great, all made in the USA.
Yeah.
And so now I know what to give to patients that don't want to take the prescribed version or just want the
Right.
wellness side one.
Yes, which is, excuse me, what I am also extremely interested in. Of course, I work with therapeutic grade essential oils. I use them in healing trauma. It's amazing. It's, but boy, it's considered woo woo. Everybody thinks it's so. That can't be. you can't just breathe in these certain oils and do these certain things and it goes into your amygdala. So I get it. What you're bringing to us is, the frustration is why, is it because of pharmacology? Is it because it is just so readily accessible that you just beat your head against the wall? Because
I think it's dangerous to them. I think they would lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
I think if you started to study this, you would see how powerful it is.
Mm-hmm.
And what I tell people, and even what I would tell people who depend on pharmaceuticals to make money and hospitals and such and insurance companies, is that a healthy society benefits us all far more than you guys making money off of it, because we're running out of money to take from them.
We are, right.
Okay. And fluoride didn't put dentists out of business.
No, it didn't.
We can find a way to work together and move on to new diseases and better ways to treat conditions. And that's what this is. This is about synergizing something natural that we're seeing not just mental health effects from, but physical health effects.
Sure. Well, we're integrated, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my first study, real quick, was, I went to an addiction treatment center. I said, guys, I want to use an array of vitamins and minerals and also want to treat the causes of addiction. Let me do this. I'll show you better results. And they say, well, you're pretty passionate about this. Okay, we'll let you run with it. And also, we were going to say yes anyway to you. So I said,
we want your help.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
We want someone as enthusiastic about this. So what I saw was that after 8 months, we compared the before and after, before I came and after I came, and then also who took the lithium and what their outcomes were versus who didn't, who said, I don't want to try this. And I said, okay, the people who took the low dose lithium, not only were they completely safe from any of the usual side effects that we get from lithium in terms of thyroid and kidney issues or heart issues, they were doubling their rates of completion as to how quickly they were ready for work, how quickly they stopped smoking. So everything that was self-destructive, they reduced. Losing weight because they weren't feeding themselves
healthy.
They weren't medicating with sugar anymore.
That's right.
They were completing the program faster and then relapsing at half the rate. It was remarkable. And
which is what you purport the behavioral change. Right.
Yes. I didn't look forwards and say, okay, we're tracking each person. I looked backwards after 8 months, and that's what it was.
It's proven.
And we published that. So frankly, in an addiction treatment setting, or if you're dealing with some sort of addiction, just adding this on is going to give you that extra help. It's going to be the ice to your workout.
Yeah, the compression
it will
you
help
need,
you.
the rest.
Exactly.
Right.
It will help
Elevation.
you recover. Bingo. Then the second study we did was during COVID, because I knew that, lithium had antiviral effects. I'd been using it in HIV.
Yes, please talk to us about
improve,
this.
Yes. To improve viral load and CD4 count. So I would tell an HIV patient, look, yes, of course you should take your AAA, your cocktail. Of course you should be safe. Of course you should avoid sharing needles. Let's not transmit this. Let's not get any nosocomial illness, etc. But you have a higher risk of depression, suicide, and dementia.
Yeah.
So guess what? I got something that you don't have to worry about sexual side effects from, like you have with so many antidepressants.
Yes.
You can use a tiny dose of this, which will also verifiably improve your CD4 count and your viral load. They would be okay with that because it's a 2-for-1, no side effects.
Wow.
Then I said, with COVID, there is data, and I looked this up before, on lab studies and coronavirus 1. Remember, this was number 2.
Just one, right? Yeah.
And so on the first one, there was data on lithium chloride and antiviral properties. I said, okay, then we should be using this as soon as someone is positive.
Where was this for my mama? Right.
I don't
know. I know.
And nor was it given in hospitals when don't even get me started.
I know.
I'll flip out. But I gave it preventatively to anyone who wasn't already on it. My practice is basically 0 benzo, any low dose lithium plus. And of course, we use other antidepressants if we need. We use stimulants, not a problem, but conservatively. And then I said, there's this group in Spain that finally answered my frantic emails and LinkedIn messages, they said, sure, we would love to partner with a study with you.
Wow.
We're going to do 2 control groups. All of them have bipolar disorder. They're all about to be hospitalized because they all have saturation rates below 93%.
Okay.
This virus is killing them. So they're in the hospital. One group, we're going to give a little bit of lithium in increments, 300, 600, 900 milligrams. This is not low dose. This is good dosing, high dosing. And the other group, we won't. But they're going to get standard treatments that they would anyway. Steroids, antivirals, oxygen, fluids, etc. In 7 days, the lithium group was discharged.
Oh, gosh. Oh, my goodness.
Discharged, walking out. Okay?
Wow.
The other group, the other 15, no. A few died. A few are still dealing with long COVID. But the genius of the study isn't in simply that measure. It's in the cytokines. You heard about this term cytokine storm, right? The cytokines are our green lights immunologically in the body that turn on to say, we need more help. And they just malfunction. At some point, it's all green lights, and then your body is flooding itself with an immune response, and that's what kills you.
Right.
These cytokines, all 18 that we measured with each dose of lithium, got turned down a touch each time. So it was not turned off like steroids do, which is dangerous in itself. It was mitigated. It was tailored down. It was like a light switch, not off, but a dial.
Yeah, like the dimmer.
The dimmer. And that's what I said, this is what I've been talking about as lithium, because so much of illness is inflammation.
Yes. And I was going to bring that up before we close, because that's what I love about your work is inflamed. I think of all the conditions in my own body that are just inflammation, and it's like, help us. Where can we go on a very practical level today? Because I want to honor you and your time, and also honor this new information for my community, right? I have got 10 papers sitting around me that I'm highlighting and reading. This is new to me. This is as new to me as using therapeutic grade oils. This is as new to me as back in the day when I discovered homeopathic medicine for my 3 children and went on a holistic adventure with them. Was criticized and was talked about and all of those things. So what can we do today? What can you leave us with that we can immediately maybe put into practice? Or where
first it's to see that it's synergistic. It's primordial. It will enhance the postmordial. I don't know if that's a word, but it will enhance the compounds that the earth has created afterwards. So it will synergize well with relaxing oils. The smell is very powerful. It hits the amygdala right away.
It does.
Okay. It goes right there. I mean, the pathway is immediate, right?
Seconds.
That's why you can remember muffins and a person. Okay.
Right.
So it's safe, and it's going to enhance what you're already doing or whatever is holistic, or the current medicines you take. It isn't or if you're diabetic, and
you must,
you can take this because it is not high dose lithium. It is to be searched as low dose lithium. It is to be searched as natural low or microdose, even if you want to search it that way. But if you search low dose lithium,
homeopathic is. It's microdose. It's tinctures. Right.
So if you look at it that way, the reflexive background that you're going to get from doctors potentially is, well, that's going to hurt you. That's not safe. But you have to be able to share with them that this is not what you think. This is at dosing that is undetectable in blood, and or even over the counter, where it's certainly completely safe because it's already in water in some places. Those regions don't have higher rates of pregnancy issues or thyroid issues.
Right.
So I would say look up low dose lithium. You can go on to, you'll see my papers. You'll see
I just want them to go on your site. That's where I want them to start.
You'll see me, and you can go to thirdelementwater.com where we have listed papers. Right. I don't want to say that I'm cherry picking or that, I'm a doctor hawking a product. I'm hawking a concept You can get this concept from your doctor, not me. You don't have to go to me. Anyone can write this. You can get this product from from an array of places. The number one selling water in China has lithium in it.
Wow, you are opening my eyes at such a time as this. I think it's critical.
7 Up.
What?
Atomic mass of lithium is 7. That's what it was.
Oh, well, I am
around.
gobsmacked, as our British folks would say.
Bib label lithiated lemon lime soda. This guy was a competitor to Coca-Cola at the time, which had cocaine in it, right? So
here we are. Here we are.
Yeah.
I want you to keep enough rage inside of you, healthy rage towards finding these responses. I also want to really just thank you for staying the course. I can't imagine life in Bellevue. You know, here you are with a family. I know how I'm working on secondary trauma in my own life, so I can't imagine, you know, how you're just called to do this, obviously. And I'm really grateful that you have stayed the course, and I pray that you will. And before we leave, I do want to, I just noted on my notes, I love your concept of pills and skills.
Yeah.
That just makes me so happy. So happy. So I guess that is what you would say you do, basically, is you work on pills, but you also have a heavy hand on the skill aspect of behavioral change.
Absolutely. If we're failing on prevention, and it just makes our job so much harder as clinicians when we're leaving that vacuum.
And in the faith-based, to me, I will close with this, just because it's something I hope I continue to have a healthy rage about in all the right ways, that we don't just spiritually bypass these really significant mental and emotional traumas, like sexual trauma and emotional trauma and childhood trauma. I just hope we can see and usher in a new age where we actually deal with things, and that really wise people, remarkable people like yourself continue to come into our path and help us. I really appreciate you.
My pleasure. And, if I could just say one thing on the faith-based, the thing that pushes me is that, whether you think God gave us this planet or God is this planet, that it's a living superorganism, I think that our purpose is more clear now, especially after COVID, that our health, personally, population, and planetary, they're linked.
They are.
And I think our purpose is to not conquer the planet like in Genesis, but to embrace it and to be able to leave it with the Noah's Ark collection, when it is incinerated by the sun in 1 billion years. But why wait till the last minute to figure out how to do this? We have to work together. Symbiosis is the key, with ourselves, balancing with each other as humans peacefully, and humans with animals peacefully. Then we can talk about Mars.
Well, thank you for that, because that is an amen, my friend, for sure. And that's nurture, isn't it? It's nurturing nature. It's nurturing one another. It's nurturing ourselves. It's nurturing those who are in our spheres of influence, which is what I pound the table over. It isn't complicated. And I think that's what I appreciate about your findings on, low dose lithium, is that it is not complicated. And so it's almost like just too simple. It confounds the wise, and it aggravates them and it makes them angry. But we're here this year, particularly, I'm here to say it's just not that complicated, So thank you. Thank you a million times over.
Thank you, ma'am, for giving me a voice and for doing your heroic work. And I think your family, you haven't been in the service like them, but you fight just as hard.
I have her moxie, man.
Sword of truth.
I do have a sword of truth, and I have my mother's moxie. That is for sure. I definitely have. She was something else, and I want to be something else and leave an imprint that is going to be helpful. Many blessings. When's the book coming out? Just have to ask.
I'm working on it.
I mean, you don't have anything else to do. Why not write a book?
I've got more papers that I've got to collaborate on before I think I can slow down and write.
Yeah. What do you do for joy? What brings you great joy?
Oh, these guys do. They're my family. You see
Oh,
right
look.
there.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I hope you have just so much joy with them this year. Just surprising joy that just comes at you all from everywhere. Thank you. Heartlifters, Dr. Gadd has given us quite a bit to think about. It is my earnest desire to bring to you this year information that will raise our mental, emotional, relational, spiritual intelligence. And so I hope that this conversation has given you food for thought. And I would love, and Dr. Gadd would love to hear from you, to have you ask questions. He's so willing to answer them. So please email me your questions at Janell, Janell, at Janell, JANELLRARDON.com, Janell at JanellReardon.com. Please know that the medical and health information provided here in this conversation is for general information and educational purposes only, and it is not a substitute for professional advice. Accordingly, before taking any actions based upon our information today, we encourage you to consult with the appropriate professionals. We do not provide any kind of medical health advice. And if you would be so kind, please go to JanellReardon.com/podcast and leave a review of the podcast. It's so simple. Just scroll down to the bottom of the page and I give you the instructions. It just needs to be 1 or 2 sentences. I cannot tell you how critical that is for the spreading of this information worldwide. And our prompt for this week's podcast is simple, pun intended. Has there been a time in your life when something very simple was introduced to you that perhaps confounded the wisdom part of your brain or the rational, reasonable part of your brain? Like, that's just silly, or that's woo-woo, or that's just crazy. How could that work? Something so simple. Like in 2019, when I found out about the use of therapeutic grade essential oils in clearing the limbic system of subconscious narratives, negative narratives, and trauma-based incidences in your life, that it clears them out and enables you to move into future freedom. The scripture is very clear that the simple things can confound the wise. So tell me about a time in your life when something so simple made all the difference. Meet me over in our private Facebook group, Stronger Every Day, and over on Instagram at Janell Reardon, where we'll keep this conversation going. Until next time, keep making room and space and saving energy to care for your heart. It really is the only one that we have. So take good care of it.
Thanks for listening today. It was great having you here. For even more great content and resources, please join the Stronger Everyday online community at JanellReardon.com. Always remember, you, my friend, have value, worth, and dignity.